I am in Santa Fe, New Mexico at the Santa Fe Plaza on this very snowy winter day. And in this video I'm going to be exploring just the downtown area, some of the smaller historical sites. The big museums will have their own videos, but this is a very, very historic city. Like literally like one of the oldest buildings in the country is like right there, and there's like 3 of them. So this is going to be pretty awesome. Let's go check this out. The plaza is the heart of Santa Fe, designed very much in a Spanish-American colonial style. It's always bustling with locals and tourists. At the center is the Soldiers Monument, an 1868 obelisk in honor of New Mexico's Union soldiers during the Civil War. Many may not be aware, but there was a New Mexico campaign during the Civil War in early 1862, during which Confederates invaded the northern part of the territory to attempt securing the Southwest. This site commemorates the Battle of Valverde in February of 1862. Despite fairly heavy casualties, the Confederates did win the battle, and this allowed them to occupy Santa Fe for a bit, but they evacuated from the city and the territory a few months later. This site commemorates battles with Native Americans. Again, this monument is over 150 years old, and you can see where they have removed a word. It originally said Savage Indians. I am glad they scraped that out, and times are different, so they have erected a contextualization plaque which mentions that it was made during a tensions time between the whites and natives, and how the term is most certainly inappropriate and that it has been removed. However, 10 months after my visit on October 12th of 2020, a few protesters damaged and removed the top parts of the monument. And I do believe the historic centerpiece of the plaza is now gone. The plaza is a National Historic Landmark. On the east side of the plaza is the Catron Block, built in 1891 by a powerful lawyer and politician by the name of Thomas Benton Catron. He once held the most extensive law library west of the Mississippi in the upper floor of this building. The plaza is surrounded by historic buildings, many of them in the adobe style, and most of them are shops and restaurants now. I ate at the Plaza Cafe, which seems to be a mix between retro and contemporary, and the chicken quesadilla was pretty good. On the north side of the plaza is the Palace of the Governors. As I mentioned, this is one of the oldest buildings in the entire country, as it was built in 1610. The Spanish territorial governor Pedro de Peralta had this commissioned over 400 years ago, and it is the oldest continuously occupied public building in the United States of America. It is now preserved as part of the New Mexico History Museum, which is fantastic, and I have a separate video on that. In the front corridor, lots of Native American vendors sell their crafts to tourists. This was also the site of Santa Fe's first chapel, which was likely connected to the complex, but it was demolished in 1714. The Old Spanish Trail connected Santa Fe with Los Angeles. It was utilized by the Spanish as early as the late 16th century. The historic Santa Fe Trail came to an end in this city. The trail was pioneered way back in 1821, and it connected Independence, Missouri with the New Mexico capital. It was primarily important for trade between the US and Mexico, and the Army would later use it in 1846 to invade during the Mexican-American War. The route was later integral for US development and settlement of the Southwest after the acquisition of this territory. This is the marker in the Santa Fe Plaza, marking the end point of the historic trail. There is a New Mexico Walk of Fame outside the Museum of Art, which features the first territorial governor of New Mexico, General Lew Wallace, a native Hoosier. Willa Cather was a famous author, and she spent lots of time here in Santa Fe. Her novel Death Comes for the Archbishop is set in New Mexico territory. Of course, Georgia O'Keeffe loved this city and region, and I have a video at the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in town. One thing I've noticed about downtown Santa Fe is that there are definitely a lot of shops and a lot of art galleries. This Pioneer canoe sculpture is pretty cool. This is La Fonda, a historic and luxurious hotel on the Santa Fe Trail. It was built by the Fred Harvey Company as perhaps their most luxurious railroad hotel. It was designed in the Santa Fe Pueblo Revival style by Isaac Hamilton Rapp in 1922. Just a few blocks from the Santa Fe Plaza is the Cathedral Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi. This magnificent cathedral was built between 1869 and 1886. This building was designed a bit differently from the surrounding adobes because it's in the Romanesque Revival style. The towers are, well, towering, and the one to the north is a row of bricks taller than the south tower. It was constructed from yellow bricks that were produced nearby. There was a church on this site in the 1600s that was destroyed during the Pueblo Revolt. There's a statue of the French-born Archbishop Jean-Baptiste Lamy. He oversaw the construction of this cathedral and is buried beneath it. This cathedral is the mother church of the Archdiocese of Santa Fe. This is a sculpture of St. Francis himself. That is a statue of St. Catherine Tekakwitha. She was the first Native American to be beatified and was canonized in 2012. These bronze doors are cool. They show events in the history of this church. The interior is absolutely beautiful. Keeping with the Romanesque style, there are lots of Corinthian columns supporting big round arches. This is the altar. The altar screen has an 18th century statue of St. Francis at its center, surrounded by paintings of saints of the New World. Above the altar is a replica of the San Damiano crucifix, a replica of the one that's at the Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi in Assisi, Italy. I mentioned Willa Cather's Death Comes for the Archbishop. Much of its plot is based in a fictionalized account of this cathedral's origins. So this cathedral does have a prominent place in the literary world. The rose window there was made in France, along with a lot of the other stained glass windows in here. Like most Catholic cathedrals, the Stations of the Cross line the walls. These are appropriately in the Spanish style, and they were created more recently, as was much of the artwork in here now. This is the baptismal fountain. There's a wood-carved nativity set. This is La Conquistadora Chapel, and at the center is the very historic statue of La Conquistadora. The original 1626 chapel at this site was built for that statue, then called Our Lady of the Rosary. It was removed during the Pueblo Revolt for safekeeping, but returned to Santa Fe in 1693. She was named La Conquistadora in honor of what was considered to be the peaceful acceptance of Catholicism by the natives. That is the original coffin of an early Franciscan priest from the 1600s. There's also a relic box here, filled with quite a collection of Catholic relics, including one of the most prized relics, a piece of the Holy Cross of Jesus Christ. This one was discovered in 325 AD. The famed composer Igor Stravinsky conducted several performances in this cathedral. Well, this cathedral is a must-do in downtown Santa Fe. Across from the cathedral is the Museum of Contemporary Native Arts, a collection of contemporary artworks of indigenous peoples in the United States and perhaps other regions. I was planning on going through this museum, however, it was closed because of the cold weather, so that was unexpected and disappointing. Next stop is Burro Alley. There used to be lots of burros meandering around 1800s Santa Fe because they had an important job. There weren't a whole lot of trees to cut in town, so burros would carry the wood on their backs and would park and unload in this very alley. Their human counterparts would then sell the wood, then spend that money in the saloons and brothels that were on either side of this back alley. That is why today there is a statue of a wood-laden burro, honoring the hard workers for their service to the city. There's a cougar chilling out on a bench. This is the Inn and Spa at Loretto, a big adobe luxury hotel right next to the Loretto Chapel. Separate video on that. Right there's the Lew Wallace building. He is a general from Crawfordsville, Indiana, and also wrote Ben-Hur, the best-selling book of the 19th century other than the Bible. But he was appointed the first territorial governor of New Mexico. So this building is named after him. Here's a plaque on the old Santa Fe Trail, which runs right by here. This is the 1878 Lamy building, built for St. Michael's College. So here along Canyon Road, there's a bunch of contemporary art studios, very high-end. It's a pretty well-known place. Most of them are closed right now. That one's open, but I don't think a lot of them also would allow me to take photos inside. That is very disturbing. How does this man get a studio along Canyon Road? This time of year, and especially for such a snowy day, there apparently isn't a lot going on at Canyon Road. Most of the galleries are closed today or are closed during the season. Still, there's quite a bit of cool artwork to look at outside. I'm sure it's an awesome place to walk around under more pleasant weather. This is a world-class international arts destination, and the shops along here have a variety of mediums, but the one thing they all have in common is that they are all very expensive. This is Mark White's Kinetic Sculpture Garden. This artist creates mesmerizing sculptures that are in a state of perpetual motion. They're really fun to look at, and they apparently work under any weather conditions. These are actually really awesome, and I kind of want one. There's even a Buddha statue and a stupa in the Kinetic Sculpture Garden. So I'm definitely going to come back to Canyon Road for a more thorough look, and hopefully not during a snowstorm. On a hill above downtown Santa Fe is historic Fort Marcy Park, a part of the Santa Fe National Historic Trail. Fort Marcy was constructed in 1846 during the Mexican-American War. The Americans did capture the city using the Santa Fe Trail, and they immediately built this fort to protect the troops in case there was an uprising among the New Mexicans here. This was the first U.S. Army fort in the Southwest. Named after Secretary of War William L. Marcy, the fort was built up here for strategic reasons because of the view, but it was also a show of power to the New Mexicans that the Americans were now in charge. The fort never saw any combat, things were pretty peaceful here, and after the war the US formally acquired the New Mexico territory. In 1847 the guns had been removed from the adobe fort and it was abandoned. It's mostly gone now. Obviously you can't see much besides the earthworks. There may be some parts more visible when it's not covered in snow, but it's still an important historic site for the city. A little below Fort Marcy is the Cross of the Martyrs. This is a 25-foot tall concrete cross commemorating the 21 Franciscan priests and all the Spanish colonists who died during the Pueblo Revolt in 1680. This plaque at the base lists the names of the Franciscan priests killed during the revolt. While the cross is impressive, the view from it is more impressive. You can see the entire city of Santa Fe, particularly the downtown. And then panning to the east, there's a great view of the Jemez Mountains. There's a close-up of the Cathedral Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi and the plaza. A lot of visitors miss the cross, but it's actually a pretty close walk from downtown, and it's something everyone should make a stop at. This area is near the old Santa Fe Railyard, and you can see I think that's a train parked up there. Here's a random 1941 Dodge pickup truck on concrete. There's the Jean Cocteau Theater and Beastly Books. This is owned by Game of Thrones creator George R.R. Martin, who's a local. Alright, I'm gonna head into Beastly Books. There's some books signed by Martin for sale here, and I think this sculpture is from Meow Wolf, which he helped produce, so go check out that video. As the sun goes down over Santa Fe, I'm gonna take a walk around the plaza and the downtown of this amazing historic city. The statue of the Spanish governor Diego de Vargas was also removed in 2020. This is a statue of Santa Fe artist Thomas Silverstreet Macayone. There's the Cross of the Martyrs as it appears from below in town. It's a relatively short walk from the cathedral. So we'll head up the zigzagging pathway to the cross. The view at dusk from the cross is fantastic. It's one of the best spots in the city for a sunset. So that was Santa Fe, New Mexico. I have other videos on individual museums and attractions in town, so please go check those out, and thanks for watching.